You guys, I think it's safe to say that over the last few months, the Boston Celtics have quite literally been the epicenter of the NBA world. And of course, the main reason for this was due to their consistent dominance over the rest of the league. And now, even though they are still making a majority of the headlines, it is definitely not for their preferred reasons. As I'm sure most of you know by now, but the Celtics have lost possibly the most crucial piece to their recent success, which is none other than Rob Williams, who suffered a torn meniscus and will be out for an extended period of time. And looking at this situation for Boston, even though yes, it might seem like the end of the world, and that is absolutely what the mainstream media has been telling us over the last couple of days. I mean, yes, I could be wrong, but I truthfully think that this is nowhere near as bad as people are making it out to be, and why this is so, and what we need to realize about the Celtics going forward needs to be dived into a little bit further. One sec though, if you haven't yet, don't forget to like the video if you do enjoy, subscribe, and turn on those notifications to never miss another NBA video. Love you guys. And for any of you regulars that haven't yet, I am highly encouraging you to do so, because according to my numbers, over 95% of you guys coming back to watch the content haven't even subscribed yet. So for any of you that do, thank you so much. But anyway, let's get back into this situation with the Celtics, which when the news originally leaked seemed to be a dagger into the heart of the Celtics 2022 season, has ultimately transitioned into what seems to be the best case scenario possible for the team going forward. As just in case you haven't seen yet, Ime Udoka came out with a statement saying that Robert Williams' surgery was very successful, and on top of that, they are looking at a 4 to 6 week timetable return, and apparently Robert Williams has already started a 2-a-day rehab process. So if everything goes according to plan, it's looking like Robert Williams will be able to return as soon as the second round of the playoffs for the Boston Celtics. And with this current situation sitting in front of them, and the Celtics having to deal with an extended period of time of playing Rob-less basketball, I really think that most of you need to realize that this team, even without their defensive anchor in Robert Williams, is without a doubt in my mind more than capable of holding their ground while the Timelord recovers, and essentially that is all they need to do at this point. Because first off, do any of you remember that questionable trade the Celtics made right before the deadline to reacquire Daniel Tice? Well, right now, that trade that seemed to have a lot of people scratching their head is looking like a blessing at this point. Now, believe me, I am not trying to implement the idea in your head that Daniel Tice is Robert Williams 2.0, because we all know that almost no one can replicate what the Time Lord is able to do out on the basketball court. But now it is clear as day that Daniel Tice will be filling his role to its complete entirety that many people did not realize when the trade originally occurred, and that is simply some extra front court insurance. So now, even though we know the Celtics are not going to get anywhere close to the level of efficiency they had with Big Rob on the court, but clearly they're going to replicate the same style of play they did recently and get the biggest bang for their buck out of what they currently have. As the starting rotation for the Boston Celtics is going to very likely look something like this going forward, where Grant Williams will find his way into the starting rotation, and of course Al Horford will shift into the starting duties of Robert Williams. And you can say what you want about this new Boston Celtics starting rotation going forward, I still undeniably think that this is one of the best defensive starting rotations that any NBA team will have to offer. And you might ask why I'm so confident about saying this? Well, in case you didn't know, the numbers show for it. Because so far throughout this season, when the Boston Celtics were playing with Robert Williams in their starting rotation, they have consistently put up an average defensive rating of 105.5, which is head and heels above every other team in the league. But when Robert Williams has not played this year, that defensive rating has dropped to a 108.8. And yes, even though this is a very substantial drop-off with the absence of one player, they still somehow rank as the 6th best defensive team in the NBA without the Time Lord. And I know not everything can be seen through the numbers. There are some things that Robert Williams does for this team that simply cannot be put on pen and paper. What I think that most people are not realizing with this is that the Boston Celtics do not have to maintain the level of excellence they have been putting up over the last 2 months, because honestly, what they're looking at right now is simply weathering the storm until the big man heals. Because like we said earlier, there is a probable case that Robert Williams will be back for a second round playoff series. And I honestly think the rest of the world is underestimating the capabilities of the rest of this Boston Celtics team if you somehow don't think that there is at least a shrivel full of hope they will be able to get through the last portion of this season, and on top of that, an opening round playoff series. And I also know that from what we've seen out of this team since the Robert Williams injury, and the Celtics picking up their first back-to-back losses since early January, the media is quite literally acting like all hell has broke loose in Boston. While I expected nothing less, we simply need to give it some time. We'll take at least some time to have Al Horford shift back into the duties of the 5, and on top of that, get Daniel Tice additional reps he wasn't getting prior. I really think that it is going to settle itself, and by the time we get to that opening round playoff series, the defensive woes will not be the biggest of their concerns. Because as I try to look ahead for this team, there is honestly one major flaw that is staring me right in the eye about them over anything else. This, I simply think, is going to hinge on their ability to close out close quarter games, which also ultimately ties into the idea that this team cannot slip through the cracks to what they originally were at the beginning of the season. Because over the course of the last 2 months for this team, the concern of closing out games was the last thing on the mind of both the players and the fans, because essentially you were blowing every team you went up against completely out of the water. But we can definitely say that this has been an issue for this team this year, and it might even be the biggest one in most of your minds as well. But if you guys have any other flaws that you can think about for this team that they'll need to improve by the time they hit the playoffs, I would love to hear about them in the comments. But that essentially is just my 2 cents on it, you guys. Because I don't think it's going to be a different team that knocks the Celtics out before the return of Robert Williams. More so, it will be themselves that get in their own way. But as we've got to this point, which again is my favorite part of every single video, I would love to hear what you guys have to think. So please let me know in the comments, do you think this team is capable of winning an opening round playoff series without Robert Williams? And on top of that, if they can survive until the Timelord returns, are they capable of winning the 2022 NBA championship? Also though guys, again, if you haven't yet, don't forget to leave a like on the video if you did enjoy, and of course subscribe while you're down there. Brand new NBA videos every single week around here, you guys. Trust me, you do not want to miss out. But on that note, I just wanted to say thank you so much to each and every one of you for watching. I appreciate you all more than anything. You all know this, and I will see you guys in the next video.